Hello, and welcome along to the stream tonight. I'm actually not sure if this is gonna work. I got a message just before I was getting ready to start to say that there is a support issue with Twitch. I'll grab the link and put it in here. So, Twitch support has a message saying we are looking into an issue causing multiple errors across Twitch right now, including elements of the site not loading. Now, it's telling me that I am live and the streaming element in OBS does say it's connected. And I've just got a message from Tomas in the chat. So I think I am here. Can you see me, Tomas? Oh, you can. Okay, so there's like Maurice sent me a message on Slack saying that he's not able to get logged into Twitch right now. So I don't know then. I'm going to continue and we'll keep an eye on it. But I'm taking a screenshot to send to Maurice to say that folks are getting in. Some folks are getting in. All right, I'll say. So Maurice is saying that he can see the video as well. Okay, so I'm just going to keep going on the basis that things are working. Oh, interesting. Maurice is saying he can see the video, but he can't get logged in or chat. So hopefully that'll work. Hopefully that will come back soon. Just send him a message. Okay. So there were a couple of things that I wanted to talk about before doing any coding tonight. The first one I wanted to mention was that I have just started a series of videos on YouTube, all about setting up Chocolatey in an organizational context. So it's something that I've wanted to do for a while. It's only now that I've kind of got the little bit of bandwidth. I have the setup that I want in terms of recording and etc. So this this series of videos is all about videos that follow along this series of documentation. So in this part of the documentation, we run through getting Chocolatey installed in an offline scenario. We get it set up with a repository server. We create a license package. We set up Chocolatey agent. Basically, all the bits that take a little bit of while, but it's fully documented, and folks have run through this without any problems. But it's basically me sitting here or standing here and going through this documentation in video format. So there's a playlist on YouTube, and I will be submitting new videos to there as and when I make them. And I hope it's going to be useful to some people. So what we're saying here, Stevie's joined. Hello, Stevie. Oh yeah, emotes don't load too. Oh, okay. So there's definitely issues with Twitch. I have a GUI feature request that came up a few moments ago. I'm filing the issue now. Okay, so we might get to that later. So I've mentioned this YouTube video series. That's the one thing that I wanted to mention. The other thing I wanted to mention was something that Kim has been working on. So Kim has been playing with GitHub Actions, and specifically a new GitHub action for the Chocolatey package request repository. So what I'm looking at here, let's maybe zoom in a little bit. If that's going to work. Why does that not work? Is it this one? No, didn't want that one. That's not what I wanted. I'll just zoom in the old-fashioned way then. So zoom 150. Okay, so this is Kim's fork of the Chocolatey package request repository, but he has got an open pull request into the actual Chocolatey package request repository. Now, the whole purpose of this GitHub action, or it's actually a collection of GitHub actions, it's about running through some of the checks that are done manually at the minute when a new issue is created on the Chocolatey package request repository. So if I were to go here and I were to go to issues and I were to submit a new one, then I will be guided down the path of this is a new request, is it a request for maintenance, etc. And the expectation is that when I click on this, there is a template that I should be following, and the hope is that I will follow this. I will mark off what I've done. I'll provide the description, the URLs, etc., etc., etc. Now, obviously, sometimes not everyone follows the template. They don't follow the requests for what they need to put in, etc. And normally, one of the package moderators will come along and read through the issue and figure out what's not quite right and make a request for it to be fixed up. So what Kim's got working now, or at least partially working, is a GitHub action. So the GitHub, you can see it all in action here. So if you go into workflows, you'll see that there are handle comments, YAML, and there's a new issue.yaml. So what these are doing, if I look at one that I created earlier, so because I created an issue in here for a made up package. So this was my get13 package. I filled in the checklist, I ticked all the boxes, I provided the URLs, but what happened was it came along and it validated based on all the checks that Kim has put into play. So it checked to see if I'd provided a URL, it checked to see if that URL actually has something at the end of it, it checks to make sure that I've ticked all the boxes, etc., etc., etc. So basically, Kim is looking for some help, and I've just seen that he's joined the chat room, so hello, Kim. Or they have requested a new package when one is already exists, the download URL. So yeah, there's lots of different things that these actions are, or this action is now checking for. So I believe I'm right in saying that Kim is now looking for some help in testing this out. So you'll see in here that he's started adding in different RFPs, RFMs for, I'm assuming, for ones that are existing, ones that don't exist, ones that have invalid URLs. So I think he's looking for some help and basically testing this out. So if you're interested in diving into a reasonably complicated GitHub action, because it's integrating with when a new issue is created, it's updating a comment within an issue, and it's also using Chocolatey in the back end in a GitHub action to do some of these tests. So definitely check it out. So like I say, it's a fork on it's a fork of the Chocolatey package request repository on Admiring Worms Kim's profile. But like I say, there is an open pull request for pulling that into the actual package request repository as well. And Kim's saying, yep, I am. I have tested the scenarios I could think of, but there are always more scenarios that I haven't thought of. Absolutely. There's always those edge cases that you want to cover. So the more eyes on this, the better. So if you are at all interested, have a look. And there's one other thing I want to talk about here, which was, yes, I should definitely mention this. So I'm going to copy this link and I'm going to click on this. Then our friendly neighborhood Veeam Vanguard, Maurice, he is speaking this week. I might have got that wrong, but I'm fairly sure if it's not this week, it's coming up very soon. He actually tweeted about it earlier, so let me find the tweet where he confirmed the date. This week, he's just messaged me in Slack. So this week is correct. So Maurice, along with some of the other vanguards for Veeam, is doing. He is part of the online conference for Veeam this week, and he's going to be doing a talk on using Chocolatey and Boxstarter together. So if you want to find out more information, the link is here. I will also put this into the chat so that it's there for posterity, which is there. So yeah, if you're at all interested, check it out and hear all about Chocolatey and Boxstarter all together. And And Stevie's just created an issue on Chocolatey GUI. Okay, fine. Let me go and have a quick look at this, and then we'll talk about what I'm going to try and do tonight, unless Stevie's issue takes precedence over that. Let's have a quick look. Feature request. Read-only view for installed packages. It was asked of me, can I make Chocolatey GUI only show packages currently installed on the machine? And I said, well, yes, it does that today. And then I then said, well, yes, kind of, and then disabled all sources on the machines. Oh, I see, and showed what it would look like. It was exactly what the user wanted to see, but I explained the caveats to what I'd just done. So I propose a new configuration item named something like hide chocolatey source feeds, which will basically flip the visible flag on each of the currently configured chocolatey sources such that only this PC is visible. So, okay, so I have some questions. So let me. So the title says read only view for installed packages. On that view, they would be able to, based on what you've said here, they would be able to right click on a package and uninstall it. Is that something that they would want, or is this read only view, is that for preventing the operations as well? So it's literally just a UI of the installed packages. Oh wow, that is a lot of PowerShell code. What did I miss? What's a lot of PowerShell code? And the follow up to that is that would, if so, a new configuration item called this, so that would be a new feature. But what would be to stop the user coming in and toggling that back off again? So there's maybe a couple of follow-up items we need to talk about there, but I don't dislike it. In the I see, yes, in the chocolate package request, there is. It's all written in PowerShell, I believe. Yes. So let's have a look. It's a lot. Yeah. So files changed. Let's have a quick look. The YAML then does lots and lots of stuff with they are separate scripts. Yeah, attach user, lots of stuff, and then there's another one that is validate. Is it called validate? New detach user, lots of PowerShell. Yeah. Oh, there is lots of PowerShell. Yes, PowerShell is probably the exact right thing to be using for this, and Kim is very proficient at writing PowerShell. So, Stevie, go about your stream. Okay, I don't dislike the issue. I think it's a sensible request. There's maybe a couple of caveats that we might. What I'm thinking is it might be a licensed only feature, similar to the allow access to the UI, the settings UI. But let's talk about that a little bit more. And Manfred's saying hide it in the config XML and don't put it on the GUI. Maybe. But anyway, I don't want to get distracted because there is something I want to try and achieve tonight, because it's something I have been working at for a little bit in between doing other work related stuff. But what I want to be able to look at is there is. So let's talk about this. So let's go and let's get Chocolatey GUI open. So let's get the project open to start with. So, oh no, I had one other thing before we get into this. I was playing with this, and this is pretty cool. But if I go ahead and show this, if I click on this, I'm going to minimize Visual Studio. Let's get back to the desktop. Then if I click on this within OBS, what you're seeing on OBS is my iPad being sent into OBS directly. So I can, if I wanted to create a new drawing here, then I can create a new drawing, and then I can in here say hello stream, right? So I'm currently essentially projecting my iPad, the screen of my iPad, onto my Mac via a little utility called, I'm going to bring it up, Air Server. And I am totally an Apple fanboy. This was never me. I was never an Apple fanboy. But I have to say, certain things do just work, right? But what I've got now, on my Mac, I have installed this little bit of software called Air Server. And that lets me connect via AirPlay my iPad onto my Mac. And then what I get then is a little window where I can then bring into OBS. So let me bring it back up again. Now the whole point in this was that I wanted to be able to, on tutorial videos, on certain things, I wanted to be able to show the screen of my iPhone or the screen of my iPad and do stuff. And it's a completely simple way of doing it. And it all just works. So I'm quite happy with it. And I just wanted to show it, because if anyone does watch the video of my introduction into setting up Chocolatey organization, then I am using this to do a doodle. And that's what I was kind of showing earlier. This is the doodle that I came up with. This is the environment that I'm attempting to set up in my video tutorial series. And my sketching is obviously amazing, but I just wanted to show that and let you know how that was working. So there's a comment there. I need to follow up with Manfred here. You used to call yourself a Microsoft guy, and I still do. But what I will say, as I have my AirPods in my ears as well, that I warned Rob that this was going to happen. Rob being my boss, Rob Reynolds, that once you jump on the iTrain, there's kind of no getting off. So it's all started with the Mac that I got for work, and then I got the iPhone because Windows Phone went away. So I had to go either Android or iPhone, and I chose iPhone because I already had the Mac. My daughter wanted to play Scratch Junior on the iPad, and it only works on the iPad. So obviously I had to get an iPad. And then I got gifted the AirPods. So they all just work together swimmingly. So it's great. Have you heard of one? I have heard of OneNote, and I have OneNote installed on my iPad. Yes, absolutely. Kim's saying that the chat suddenly stopped working. Well, that's not good. OneNote is my go-to note-taking application, absolutely. The new whiteboard app is also quite amazing. The new Microsoft Whiteboard app, or I think I've heard of that. Can confirm I am looking at... I thought you were an Android guy, Stevie. Thomas, this is cool. If you have a Mac, would you really need Air Server though? Couldn't you mirror what QuickTime is showing? I wanted to do it wirelessly, so I actually did a tutorial video on this. I wanted to be able to do it wirelessly without the need for a cable. So the Air Server just makes it completely wireless and completely seamless. It all just works. Now, got to stick with Pobby on this. No. And Stevie, well done. But like I say, once you're on the iTrain, there's no getting off. I'll warn you now. But I can take calls on my Mac and have AirPods, and it's all Rob. Exactly what Stevie said there. So what was I going to say there to Thomas? No, I can't remember what I was going to say to Tomas. If it comes back to me, Tomas, I will remind you, or I'll come back to it. But yeah, it all just works seamlessly, and is pretty cool as well. Because like I say, there's a video up on YouTube about me setting it up, but if you're interested, go and have a look. Okay, so what I was going to talk about was there is a feature request for the ability to have global Chocolatey GUI settings. Now, this all came about because the current settings are broken. So let me explain that. So have I got Chocolatey GUI installed on this machine? I do. Okay. So if I bring up Chocolatey GUI, and it's currently broken, but I think I know why it's broken. So let's go into here, see users, Vagrant, application, oh no, app data, local, Chocolatey GUI. I'm going to delete both of those. Let's do that again. There we go. Hopefully. So nothing new. Thanks for the vote of confidence, Kim. So within Chocolatey GUI, we have the concept of a user level data.db file. So that's the folder I mentioned now. C user vagrant app data local Chocolatey GUI, and there is a data.db file that lives in there. And if I come into the settings screen here and I toggle on or off one of these features, or I modify the config setting, then those changes get written into the local.data.db file. Now you know that that's happening because you might have just seen it in the video there, that a data-journal.db file gets created, and that is basically the change being persisted into the data.db file. And if I then run the Chocolatey GUI CLI and I ask what is my current config, then it will list out which features are and what config is currently set up. So both via the user interface and via the CLI, I can change those settings. So back, if I go over here and I go to feature, disable, name, and I do this, then I can disable that feature. And if I run it out again, then it's off. And if I run Chocolatey GUI again, then that feature will indeed be disabled. And all of this works amazing, right? It works amazing, and it's off there. It works amazing because I am executing Chocolatey GUI as me, the user, and I'm running the Chocolatey GUI CLI as me, the user. So the problem comes when I want to be able to provision Chocolatey GUI, and the Chocolatey GUI settings by some other orchestration mechanism, be it when I'm doing a Vagrant up on a machine and I want to change those settings, or if I'm doing an installation via Puppet or Chef or Ansible. The problem there is that when I'm running that Chocolatey GUI CLI command, I'm not running in the context of the current user. So if the command does work, it ends up putting a data.db file randomly in some system profile in the syswow64 folder on Windows. So it's not in the current user context, therefore the settings are never applied, or the command just flat out fails because of reasons. So in order to counteract that, and this is not a new idea, this idea has been around since 2018, is there is the concept of having a global settings file. And the idea being that during my automation, my setup of Chocolatey GUI, I want to run, I would run my automation against the master set of information, or the global set of information. And that global set of information will likely be in the program data Chocolatey GUI folder. So there'll be another data.db file here, and those will be the global settings, right? And the idea being that at the command line, when I run Chocolatey feature, let's imagine I'm going to say enable again, then there will be an additional switch that is -- global. And when you pass in -- global, it will accept that global parameter, and rather than putting it into the data.db file that lives in the user folder, it will put it into the system level data.db file at the global level, right? And the question from Manfred is, can't we just store the GUI config? Can't we just store the GUI config in the environment install config? Well, no, we can't. Well, there's no reason that we couldn't, because also what you're saying is put it in here. But it's not a chocolatey setting, it's a chocolatey GUI setting. So we've already got the chocolatey GUI folder for logs. So what I'm envisioning is putting a config folder here. And I'm going to put my data.db file in there. What if the user changes the global settings first and then so these are all good questions. So my the thought process is that the global file will be read first, and then any user specific changes that are different from the ones that are in the global file will win. So if in the global settings you say, let's bring this up, let's say in the global settings you say default that to be on, and then in the user ones you put it to off, then they'll be off because the user settings trump what's in the global settings. Does that make sense? So the idea being that I, as administrator, can come along and set all the default settings to the way that I want it to be. And then if the user comes along and says, well, I don't like that, they can tinker with it and it will be set to their preferences. Beautiful. Okay. So I've been toying with this and I've been going backwards and forwards on this, and I have got some work that I did on my other machine, but I basically want to start it again, and I'm going to try and get through the majority of it tonight, because I ran into some issues and I ran into some questions, and I thought it would be a good opportunity to talk through some of this with the folks that I hoped would be on the stream tonight, and the folks that I wanted to be able to talk about this are on the stream tonight, so it's worked out really well. So I'm going to go ahead and close all documents. And the first thing that I need to look at is I need to look at adding an additional flag onto the feature and the config settings, the commands, so that we can have an additional option, which is the global. So I'm going to say dot add here, and I'm going to close that out. And then in here, we're going to have either G, so short dash G or dash dash global as an option, and it's going to be a flag, so it's not going to take a value. It's just either going to be on or off. And welcome to the chat, Maurice. Well done. What is that? Config command. That's a resource. Why did I not have that on my machine? I don't remember having to do that in the feature command. Let's bring this up here as well. So this is the command in the common. The command here. Oh, they are both there. Interesting. Okay. So what we are going to need to do is in my feature command, so I'm going to need this one open. We'll say keep tab open, and then back to here and look at my config command, and we'll keep this one open too. So I'm going to need to add another property in here. and this is going to be a Boolean, and this is going to be global. So it's a, is this command, config command, being run in the global context or not? So I'm going to add that in, and then I'm going to add another one in here that is prop bool, and this is going to be global as well. So with both of those set, we should now be able to go into here and say dot add here as well. And on here we are going to put again G for the short version and global for this one. And then in here we are going to put the what was this one? The description. So we are going to need to create one for that. Resources dot feature command, and it won't be name option, but we will borrow that and we will say the global option. Can't spell, so we need to add that in. And then in here we're going to do option configuration dot feature command dot global, and oh, hold on, seems like I need to stop using at, since it seems my messages don't show up. I blame Twitch as its undocumented features. Oh, so there's more Twitch issues. Interesting. So what I was looking at here was Chocolatey. I'm going to look at some that I did earlier. But Marissa's saying that you can still hear me, so we're good. Okay, perfect. Oh, thank you very much, Rodney. Appreciate it. Yeah, I know there's been some intermittent issues, and it seems like there's definitely things that have been affected, but I do seem to be live, so that's good. What I was looking for was something like this to remind myself what we're doing here, and then that's going to be equal to that, and then it's either to option if it's not equal to null. Okay, so we don't have, I can borrow a lot of this and put it into the config command. Let's do this, but this time it's not going to be the feature command, it's going to be the config command, and then this here is going to be config also. So we're going to need to go into our properties resources. Marrying worm, I think it's a Twitch in the matrix. Yep, but something's different. New haircut. Who's got a new haircut? I'm totally missing something. A glitch in the Twitch. Oh dear. This one can close. This one can close. It does indeed sound nasty. So I'm going to borrow this, and let's put this into here. And then something. Yes, that's not localized, but we will localize that later. And something else. So imaginative. There we go. Okay, so we've got both of those things now. So if the global options passed in, it will be red. But as we saw, the feature command at the very least is, oh no, that's not true anymore because it will have parsed it. So it won't be an unparsed parameter. What I was thinking there was when I did enable with dash dash global on the end, it came up with an error saying a single feature command must be listed. But that's because it hadn't correctly parsed this global parameter that I was passing in. But now that we've added that into the command argument parser, it will be parsed. Therefore, that should no longer happen. So localize that later. Hashtag that. If that's not on Twitter already. Oh, I've just seen Rodney's tweet as well. Thank you very much. We will come back to that because, yeah, we will. So what I'm going to need to do now is I'm going to switch to using the Chocolatey GUI CLI as the default project for running stuff. And I'm going to go into there and I am going to go to properties and I'm going to go to debug and I'm going to pass in some feature, some arguments into the command line version. So I'm going to do feature enable dash dash name, and we'll use the example that we were doing before, which was default this. So if I grab that again, paste that into here and do dash dash global, then when we come in here, which is the actual running of the command, which is here, then we didn't put dash dash global on. So if we hit start, let's see where we get to. So we're running the CLI version and we're running the feature command. So what we should get is, should get to here, and the config of this thing should have command name feature. This is probably really hard for you guys to read, but it's got feature command. And if we look at the settings, and global is indeed set to true, it's got the enable subcommand and it's got the default, the name of the feature that we're trying to set. All good. So what we now need to do, so that part's working. We've added that additional option into the option set and it's correctly being parsed. We should test the other one, which is the lower single case g. Let's run that and make sure that that flows through. So config, again, config has feature, the feature command has enable, the name, oh, and global's true. Why is global true? Oh, global is true, because we still got the dash G on it, sorry. And then the final test, if we take that dash G off and run this again, then this time round the config should be global is false. So in the feature command, global is false. Beautiful. Okay, so that part is working. The next part that we need to look at is where data.db lives. So there's no such thing as temporary code. There is. Unit test would be nice indeed. It's an open source project. Feel free to send a PR. Happy to accept. So currently, indeed, it does sound like a volunteer Stevie. So the so currently, the way that the I should talk about this a little bit, shouldn't we? So the I haven't created a branch for this. I should totally create a branch for this as well. Chocolatey GUI CLI has the concept of a module, and that module is what's used to provision and set up the IOC container that we use. Chocolatey GUI has a very similar module. It doesn't live in there, it lives in common, I think. if I recall correctly. Start up. No, where's the module? I know there's a module in here for Chocolatey GUI. Let me find it. This one. Yeah. So they both have a module, and both of those modules are responsible for setting up the IOC container. And at the minute, it only has the concept of the data.db file that lives in the user context. Now, I'm saying that we're going to have another database file that is the global database, which is going to live in the program data folder. So the first thing I want to change is I want to change this to be called user database. I'm going to do that again because I can't type. So this is the user database, and I want another one that is the global database. And I'm fairly sure that there is an app data path on there, and there is. So that app data path is going to be the path to the C program data folder rather than the user's app data folder. Okay, so that's what that is. So I'm going to copy that and put this into here. And then I'm going to rename this database here as well to be the user database. Now, the other part that's happening here is that before the single instance of that database, which is an instance of the light database type, was being registered into the IOC container. The reason that that was necessary is because the config service takes that in this, that database is injected into the config service, and is also injected into the Chocolatey GUI cache service. You can, no, is it not that one? Where else wasn't that one then? There's another service into this one. So I'm going to keep this one open as well. And I'm going to go back and I'm going to look at the config service and we keep that one open. Now, the reason that it worked is because there was a single instance of the light database type in the IOC container. So whenever a constructor said, "Hoi, please give me an instance of that light database container," from the container, sorry, the light database from the container, it just got it. But now, in the setup that I've just set up, I can't just register another instance because I would then have two instances of the light database type in the IOC container, so it wouldn't work. And I don't think there's another way of doing it. So the only way that I've thought about doing this is I'm going to do the following. So if anyone has a better way, I am all ears. So what I want to do is I'm going to register an instance of these two services that require those databases, and I'm going to put them into my IOC container rather than registering a single instance of the user database. So I'm going to take this part out, and I'm going to change this to be an instance, and I'm going to change this to be an instance, not of a type. I'm going to register an instance of register instance new config service, and that's going to take that one at the minute just needs my user database, so I'm going to put that into there, and that is going to be, I've got them running the wrong way, so cut that, put that into there, cut that and put this back into here, and I'm going to register this as a new, I forgot what it was called, light DB file storage service, and that takes, as at the minute, it takes an instance of the user database. Now, why is that not working? What did I do? as, oh, I see. I'm missing a parentheses there. I'm missing a parentheses there. I was missing a parentheses. Thank you, Stevie. So this is not pretty, and I'm hoping that someone might tell me that there's a better way of doing it. But for now, this is how I'm going to do it. It's not like he has a child he needs to look after. Correct. Or not. So I'm going to do the exact same thing over here. Okay. Now the reason that I need to do that is because what I think I want to do is on this config service, I'm going to change this up a little bit. So this is going to become user database as well. And I'm also going to pass in another light database instance that is my global database. And that's why I needed to change that registration round. So I'm going to do this, and I'm going to go to my iConfig service, and I am going to, no, I don't need to do that. Sorry, that's just the instantiation of it. So this here is renamed as user database as well. And I want to create another one here, which is private read only light database, and this is going to be my global database. So in here, I'm going to say that my global database is equal to my global database that I've passed in. Okay. Now, that I think makes sense, right? Now, what I can then do is if I minimize this, then where I come in and I list out the features, I can then specify whether I want to read them from the global one or from the user one. So what I'll end up with is being able to read from either the global database or the user database based on that switch, right? And I think, let me remember where I do this. This is all done with through the app configuration. So let me just remember what I'm doing here. There's a little bit more I need to do here, I think. Oh, it's to do with these settings. So I'm going to need one of these, which comes from the global database. And this is going to be my user settings. And this is going to be my global settings. And then at the minute, this is using my user settings, so I'll leave that in there. But what I want to do is I want to take this out of here, and I'm going to create a new var default settings, which is equal to this. And for the sake of those following along, let's make this a little bit smaller. And save all that and do this. Okay, and then here I'm going to say that my default settings are there. However, what we've said and what Manfred brought up in the chat was, well, which ones take priority? So in this new landscape, I'm going to say that my default settings should be applied to the global settings. So the global settings are going to have the defaults, and then my user settings are only going to be used or set when the user sets them, right? So my global settings are going to be set to this. So this is actually, this app configuration, I think, I want to rethink this as well. That this here also is my user app configuration. And I think I need another one that is my app configuration, which is my global app configuration. So these will be single instances that are the user specific one and the global specific one. And I think I want a final one. I'm completely working off the top of my head now. I think I want another one that is the effective app configuration. So that one will be the commingling of the global and the user settings. Okay, so this one is now essentially wrong because I want this one to be my global app configuration. Global app configuration, right? And this one here is if it doesn't have one, my user doesn't have one. If we haven't persisted it, the user one should be the global one, I think. Okay. So then I need to do some stuff. So what are we doing here? We are saying settings collection is the user database get. So why are we doing that when we've already got that? We don't necessarily need to do that again because we've already got that in our user settings. So unless we always want to read it, so we're always pushing, and that's possible. But based on, we need a new parameter here. We need a bool in here that is global. And based on passing that in, we're either going to take it from the, let's copy this and paste this. We're either going to take it from the global or we're going to take it from the user. So let's put this down here. Make that a little bit prettier. Okay. So the settings collection, based on whether it's global, is either going to put it into the global one or it's going to put it into the user one. So far so good, he says. Now that's going to break because I added in this parameter. Might be broken for lots of reasons, but that's the main reason that it could be broken just now. So let's have a look at my errors. So what we need to be able to pass in is the global setting. So this is the enabling of a feature. So what we should be able to pass in here is configuration.featureCommand.global. That's either going to be true or false. So we've fixed that one. And then that's the one we just fixed on its another one. So this is the disable feature. So again, we should be able to do config.featureCommand.global. And then we should have another one. This is the config one. So this one is going to be configuration.configCommand.global. We pass that in. And then this one is a unset user config. So this again is going to be configuration.configCommand.global. And then we keep going down here. I need to change that around. So I think the order that I did it was, here's the global one / the user one, yes. And then this one, iConfig service. I thought I didn't need to update that. What are you complaining about? Does not implement the interface. Oh, the setting changed on the cert. That makes sense. So over here, on here, we've got a bool that is global. That should make that happy. It did. And this one here needs to be a global database along with a user database. Okay, so if we build that, I think that should be that part working. And then I need to look back here at my config service. So that's the updating. When it's, so now I need to find out when we list it. So in the feature command, when we list, we go to list features. So if I go to implementation on this thing calls get features, and get features is get property. Oh, that's just no. Oh, so that's the features. But where's it reading those from? Property name, get value. Oh, it's here, look. It's calling it from there. So, again, I need to know which one to use. So I should have that information in here, right? Chocolatey GUI configuration, yes I do. So when we call get features, we need to know whether it is happening at the global level or not. So global. So we either say global question mark global app configuration, or we say the user one based on global. Now that's going to cause some errors because we've now don't know. Oh, we broke it on the service again. So when we say get features, we need a bool on global. And then the other error is here when we call it. So we need to do configuration dot list features. So that will be on the feature command dot global. There we go. Now we will have another one on the list settings. So we figured out that one. Now in our command for this, we have, when we run, when we list, it is list settings. So here, list settings, we are here. So if we do this one, configuration, no, configuration dot config command dot global, I'm going to pass that in. That's then going to be broken because we need to pass in a bool that is global. And then when here we are reading it, we're going to say global app configuration or user. And then we're also going to have broken this because bool global. Okay, before we do anything else, hi Adil, how we doing? Before we do anything else, we should test some of this. No, we broke something. What did we break? Oh. Okay. So get features wants to know whether it's global or not. So this is coming from the settings view model. The settings view model is only ever called from within Chocolatey GUI. So we know that this is never going to be global because from the user interface, within Chocolatey GUI, we are never going to set the global settings. That's only ever going to be allowed through the Chocolatey GUI CLI. Okay, so that's why we can say false there. And then this one, same thing here. So rather than leave that as a bare Boolean, we will put that in there. I've lost where we set it. It was this one, get features, and we're going to say global. We're going to have it as a named parameter. Oh, look at that. Thank you very much for the subscription, Adil. I appreciate it. Adil resubscribed with, thank you very much. I should have in the stream, I should have like pop-ups and fireworks going off whenever someone subscribes, but I don't. I've never invested the time to set all of those sort of things up. I don't. I should have one for if someone follows me as well, but yeah, I don't. So, anticlimactic. Maybe one day. Maybe one day. So what we should do here now is we should. That's what I was thinking. We should make sure that. Oh, that path's not quite correct yet, is it? I should fix that in the module because I said that I want to put it into the config folder. So we're going to put this into config DataDB, and then my other module, I'm going to put it into here as config DB. Now that folder won't exist, but I've created it. And the other folder, I'm going to say File Explorer, I'm going to go back to my user one, because I know I've broken some stuff in terms of how this config works. So I'm going to delete the pre-existing data.b and the data.b backup. So now I am going to change what I'm trying to run here. So where's my project gone? This one. I'm not going to try enabling now. I'm just going to say list, and I want to see what I get back. So I'm going to run the feature list command without the global, which means I should get back the default settings, right? So if I say go, it should hopefully not break, but it also didn't. What happened there? Let's go to implementation and let's set a breakpoint here. I don't think it broke. I'm just not convinced if it worked or not. Okay. So use keyboard bindings is set. Now that's set because we set that as our default in here. Use keyboard bindings is true. And the other one is that we listed the features, so we're not seeing those. So if I let that play through, that's fine. If I run that again with my -global and I hit play, it should be exactly the same. Then we need to start messing around with it. So over here, it's true. Good. So let's start messing around with it. If I go back to my command and I say enable --name, let's do the first one. So show console output. If I say that, if I enable the show console output at the user level, so let's go ahead and do this. I do this, and then I'm going to cut that out, and I say list. then here, that feature should be enabled. Show console output is got a mark on it, so it's enabled at the user level. If I run that command again with the -G, then it shouldn't be, because we've only enabled it on the user level. Fingers crossed. Back to here. It's not enabled. Okay, so far so good, I think. And then if I come back to here and I do that, so let's not do show console output anymore. Let's do this one. And I say -G and I say run. Then that feature should be enabled in the global setting. So if I go back to the list, take that out and do list and do start, then the show console output should be false at the global level, but the default to tile list for source should be true. Oops, that's not what I wanted to do. Seriously. Why did that happen? That's wrong. That shouldn't have happened. Okay. What do I get if I do it here at the user? Halfway there. Oh, it worked there. So how did show console output get enabled in the global one, but not here? I'm going to run that again. I'm going to delete both of these databases again. Okay, they're both gone. So let's do that again. So list. Nothing's on apart from use keyboard bindings. Good. Loving the Bon Jovi references. Definitely living on a prayer, indeed. And we do -G. Then we should only have one feature enabled. And that feature is the use keyboard bindings. Yes. Okay. So then what I did was I said we come in here and we do enable --name, and we're going to do this one, and we hit go. This is the feature. So let's have a look at the command again, and let's go to implementation. Then, oh, hold on. Hold on. We didn't do what we did on the list. That's why it hasn't worked. That's why it hasn't worked. So what I did on the update settings, I added it to the update settings, but I didn't do the same on the enable feature. So the enable feature at the minute is only using the user app configuration, and that's not what we want. So we want, put on, is that where we've come to now? Can I put some AC/DC into the mix? Sure, I have no objections. So the enable feature, oh, so that's specifically for the command. So var is, what do we want to put in here? We want to either use the user app configuration or the global app configuration based on what configuration is passed in. So let's use the terminology that is chosen. App configuration. And that is going to be equal to configuration dot feature command dot global. If that's true, then this is going to be global configuration, or it's going to be the user configuration. And then this is going to replace the usage of that, the usage of that, and the usage of that. Had bus though. Had the bus. Did I put that on the wrong place then? Where's this called from? I did, look at that. So we don't need this then. A little bit of refactoring here then. So this, oh no we do, because that, oh we do need that. Because then it decides the actual database to save this instance into. So we are going to need to do that. But all the places that call that is going to need modified. Okay, so in the disable feature, we're going to need something similar. The disable feature is going to take that, and this is either going to use that, or that, or that. The get config value is going to do something similar. Oh. Copy that, paste that. This is no longer the feature. This is a config operation, and that is going to be there. The set configuration is going to be here, and this is going to be used here and here, and the unset config is going to be here, and this is still a config, so that config there, and then that, and then that, calling update setting. So that was 1, 2, 3, 4, I thought there was 5 usages of it. Keterin, sometimes I really hate you. I'm migrating a Keterin package to AU. Good luck. Good luck. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4 usages of it, and I think we've got them all. So build this again and see if we haven't got any errors. Now if this works, there's one thing left to do, but it's the hard bit. So where do we get to? We want to set it. So here we are enabling the feature on the user context. So let's go ahead and run this. Oh, my breakpoints are probably, oh no, my breakpoint's fine. So we've enabled the feature on the user. So cut that and do list. And let's run this again. So if I switch to this, then on the user one, show console output is on. Good. If I run that command again with the global, then we shouldn't see it. Good. So far, so good. We come back to here and we put this back on, -G, and we're going to set this one. Okay. We hit go. If we do that, I saw it saying it was happy. So if we go and now list at the global, when we list at the global, we should see disable tile view for local source. Good, that's what we wanted. And if we come back in here and we take this off and run it, then we should see only the show console output, which we do. Good. I think that is working. Right. Kim was asking whether it's a DTGM's repository that Marisa is trying to update a package from, but he's saying no, it's from another maintainer called Doc. Marisa saying, I'm a co-maintainer of the package and Doc is not responding anymore, so I kind of have to. The new spec file is also a mess, sometimes tabs, sometimes 4 spaces. Beautiful. Okay, so this is the hard bit, I think, and I would like some input on this part. So what we've got now is we have got we haven't tested that part. So let's do a test here. Let's run Chocolatey GUI and make sure that we haven't broken anything there. So let's run the actual UI again. So when we come to enable a feature, let's set a breakpoint here and set a breakpoint here. If we run this guy, debug, start a new instance. If we set a feature through the UI, it should go to the user database, not to the global one. So let's pick a different feature and we will toggle it on. Okay, so we're going to go to settings and we're going to pick this one. So the show console output is still on as we wanted it to be, and we'll put on the tile view in here. So here we should be false. Correct. So if we let that run through, then that we've got the first one on and the third one on. So if we close this and we go back to our Chocolatey GUI CLI and we list the user settings, we should have the first and the third. Let's just clarify that. So over here, we've got the first and the third. Good. And if we do the global features with -G, then we should have just the second. Good. Okay, happy with that. Right. So everybody in the chat room, are we listening? The next thing I need to think about, we need to think about, is how do I know when a user has set a value, either through the UI or through the Chocolatey GUI CLI, and how do I know to override it? So what I mean by that is we've got a setting here. I'm going to put this in the right order. We are loading up the global settings and we're loading up the user settings, but we currently aren't co-mingling them together. Because what we said was that we should first look at the global ones, and if the user hasn't overridden any of those values, we should just get the global ones. But if they have changed something, I need to commingle that into this effective configuration and use that when I am deciding what the current configuration is. So when I call my get app configuration, I want to return the effective configuration. So there's some other comments here. Yeah, but my OCD wants to have all elements in a specific order. Okay, that's the new spec in a particular order. I'm the same actually, or I used to be. Maurice, yeah, that is a different story. That is why I usually start from scratch or through a script. And then Maurice is saying, if a setting.parameter is not equal to the global settings.parameter, set it into user settings. And that is see, the way you said that makes it sound really simple. I don't know if it is. So let me share with you why I'm thinking that. And actually, where is this getting called from? That's being called from package view model, remote view model, settings view model, all of those things. iConfig service, shell view. Yeah, that's not the user. That wants to be the effective settings. That will be the commingled versions. Okay, so what we're saying is, or what Maurice is saying there is, if the user setting dot whatever the parameter is not equal to the global setting, then set it into the user settings. Now, if yes, no, so this is the scenario. So, no, that's not the scenario. No, I thought I had a scenario in my head there, but I'm not sure if I do. No, I have a setting. So let's imagine the scenario that, so where's the app configuration class? We have this thing, right? We have this thing. Now let's imagine that we are in a brand new setup, right? Brand new setup says that the show console output is false. So let's imagine that I, as an administrator, come along and I set at the global level the show console output to true. Now that means that in the global database, it's set to true. But over here in my user one, it's set to false. Now the user hasn't made a decision. They haven't set that value, but it's false by default. So my change into the global one to set it to true, based on what you've just said there, was if they're different, take the user one. So the user one is false, but I've set the global one to true, meaning that it should trump what was in or not in the user one, because the user one hasn't explicitly set that value. So catch 22 would be that if global setting.parameter gets changed, the user setting, there we go. I think that's what you exactly just said. As an administrator, the global should trump the user one. But the user, the administrator user in that one is still a user. So I'm not sure if that's right, Stevie. As an administrator, the global should trump the user one. I'm not sure if that's right. Me as the administrator, so you're saying whether or not it's an elevated process should, I wasn't thinking that. Oh no, I see what you're saying. But the problem with that, Stevie, though, is that you can't do that as you can't set the user file because you don't have access to it. So, or not you as an administrator, but you running as a system process, like a chef or a puppet or a vagrant. You can't change that file. So it has to be set in the global one, meaning that any change to the global one has to be respected in the user one if it has been set. As a user, what if I don't like the console output and want to, and so that's still allowed. So if I as administrator have set it on, you have the option to go ahead and turn it off. But based on what you said above, Maurice, you wouldn't have that option to turn it off because it would never be on. Because your setting, without explicitly setting it, is taking effect. And I think that's the problem. Me as in, I'm the guy who installed this for you. But once a user sets a config, that, yes, absolutely. But at the minute, based on what I've said, if we flip the show console output to on at the system level, if all we say is if the values aren't the same, take the user one, then that value would never be on because the user value is false by default. But by default, the user setting is false. Yes, exactly. Chicken and egg. So what I had thought about doing was completely breaking stuff. And I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to change this app configuration to have a nullable bool. So meaning by default, the features don't have a value, right? So that means that the user DB, the user's data.db, will have a null in it. But if the global one comes along and gets set, and the user one doesn't have a value, at that point the global one will take over. And then if the user comes along and says, well, hold on, Mr. Administrator, I don't like what you did there, then setting the value to false is explicitly opting into changing it. Chicken and egg. So we're not going down that route. Unless I hear differently, I'm going to change all of these to be nullable bools. Now that's going to break a bunch of stuff, but that's fine. I'm going to go and fix them. So this is your opportunity to interject and say, Gary, you're being silly. But if I don't hear that, I'm going to continue to fix all of the places where this is broken now. Things I learned. There is a nullable. You can have pretty much a nullable anything. So you could have had a property here that was an int, as an example. And we'll call this a Stevie int. So at the minute, that int is a non-nullable integer, meaning by default for that type, it would have a value of 0. But you could also say that that has become a nullable integer, meaning that it can have a null value. So in the context of a bool, it basically makes it a 3-state bool. It either doesn't have a value, or it's either been explicitly set to true or false. And I think that is what we need. I think we need to talk about the giant. I hate nullable values, and I don't necessarily like them. But I mean, the other option that I thought about, Kim, was to have another bool that says hide package download count explicitly set, something like that. So another Boolean property that will handle whether or not this one has been explicitly set or not. Or I also thought about starting a new class, and that class would be a super bool, and that super bool would have some properties, and that super bool would be name, value, and then explicitly set or not. So each of the bools would become a class. But I think that's a little bit of over engineering, and based on the fact I have to do reflection code already to set the instance of the app configuration in memory, I think having another property to reflect over becomes harder as well. So let me see, let's catch up in the comments. There is no Stevie. This is the Stevie you're looking for, indeed. Bullshit. And what thread count are those? Or an enum, show, hide, hide explicit, or something like that. Or an enum, show, hide. You started speaking words I don't know at this point. Or an enum. No, that's not true, Stevie. That's not true. Or an enum, show, hide, hide explicit. Oh, I see what you're saying. Or, okay, I see what you're saying. What image? Oh, sorry. I missed that. Let me open it over somewhere first. Oh, good God. That one. I've seen that one before. Tab paste. So is it the chicken and egg dot sort? Then the answer, of course, is the chicken came first. An enum, show, hide, hide explicit. You've got me wondering, Kim. So the show and hide, or enabled, disabled, would be the default value. And then if either the user comes along and explicitly enables it, then it would be set to that. And then I'd be able to reflect over that to find out what it is. Don't get caught up in the names. Those. No, I understand. I understand what you're saying. And we do still need to do the comparison at runtime, absolutely, Stevie. That's the hard part that I was referencing before. So we need to commingle the user database and the global database, but do it knowingly based on whether it's been explicitly set or not. I'm sort of erring towards what. Are all the config values nullable? In that case, it's easy to detect which one is. So they are. So the config values are either all booleans, because it's a feature. It's either on or off. So by making it nullable by default, it's null by default, then it's setting it makes it explicit set. So that's why a bool is a simple change here. There is one type of config which is a string value. So it either has a value or it doesn't. So in that scenario, that isn't an easy one to do either, because, well, no, that's not true. I could make that a nullable string as well. And then it's set in my global, it's not set in there. So that one would work too. Adding the enum would mean there's some additional changes to where it's used in the UI, more so than what I had envisioned here. String is nullable by default. Sorry, yes, you're right. But it's whether or not, what my thinking there was, I'm no longer setting that one by default in the user one. So that's fine. So it will still be a null string. So that's fine. So string is a null. Yes, it is. No, you're right. Because it's what's the word I'm looking for? It is once you set it, you can't change it. It's always a new instance of the string. So I think I'm going to go with bools. I'm going to go with bools here, I think. So I'm going to fix all these errors. I think. I'm going to try and fix all these errors. And the other thing I wanted to do here was, whoa. So I'm going to say, I'm going to make some changes here. And not that. I'm going to use the null coalescing operator to handle the possibility of being a null value. So if this is null now, I will default this to false. So there are going to be a lot of these. Beautiful. And this one here is here. So if I do this, I'm going to default that to false as well. And then this one is here, false. And then here, use keyboard bindings. This is the one place, and this is one of the reasons I don't like doing this. It's because based on the settings that I put here, I have to knowingly use the same one. So it's not particularly pretty. The other one I'm going to change here while I remember is I'm going to say that this is true by default. So that's a breaking change. Because before that was false, but this is a breaking change. But I'm okay with that as well. So this one is show aggregated source. I'm going to say false. And then this one, I'm going to stop typing this out all the time. Copy that. And I'm going to put this into, whoa. I think I can get away with that. App config. I think I can get away with that. There. 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 There, exclude. Error list. Sure. 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 I'm taking some liberties here. I think this will all work. Get configuration. Can I do that? Or will I need to surround that? I got away with it. And then this one is here. Okay, so having made all of those changes, we should be in a position where, so if I go back to my Chocolatey config service, and this is the one that I'm interested in, I think. Oh, hold on. I don't think we're using effective configuration in enough places, are we? Yeah. I don't think we are using it in enough places yet. In the list. In the list. When we say list features or list settings, we are currently getting the features from here. That's not right. When we display them, we should be returning the effective app configuration. Yes. So when we get the features or we get the settings, we should be showing the effective configuration. Yes. And the reason that we should be doing that is because in the same way that we get the configuration for displaying in the UI, which is what I changed up here to be the effective configuration, we should also do that when we list them out, because we should be showing the final result of the two. Okay, so what I need to do is I need to find a way to set the effective configuration. So the effective configuration, I need to loop through all the properties of the global, set them into the effective configuration, and then I need to loop through all of the user settings, and if they are different, meaning they've been set, they override what's in the global one. Yes, I think. So, but it's not just as simple as I need to do it in such a way that it will, if we add another feature or we add another piece of configuration, I need it to be not have to come back here and update it. I want to use, or I need to use reflection to reflect over all the properties, and then for the instance, I want to set the value if it's required. Okay, so I've got code similar to this. So if I say here, then in here, I can borrow this. So I'm going to borrow this, copy these ones. So what I'm doing here is I'm looping through the properties of the app configuration class. So that app configuration class has properties that are either of config or of type feature. So here, where I was looking at a feature attribute, I don't necessarily care. Maybe I maybe do. I maybe do. Where did I borrow that from? I said get features. I'm more interested actually in the setting. So let's borrow that. This one. I think I'm more interested in this code here. Let's borrow some of this. Actually, I think I want both. What do we want to do? Get features. Interested in this. Let's try and put something together. So for each of the properties of the app configuration class, loop through them. If the feature property, I don't care about that one, I already have the property. So the property is going to be this guy. The var global property value is that, and this is going to be the global app configuration. The var user property value is going to be equal to this. Okay. So I've just got the property value for both the global and for the user. And then I want to set the value on the effective configuration. And then I don't want to call that. I don't necessarily want to do that. So let's call it some of these things. Manfred asked me to say bye to all of you guys and girls. Bye, Manfred. Thank you for relaying that message, Maurice. So, feature property dot set value. Oh no, we would want another one as well, which is the effective property. There's a lot of reflection going on here. And it's all because of the fact that I don't know. I have to reflect into the instance. Please someone tell me if I'm doing something horribly, horribly bad. Oh, why did that not let me do that? We're getting lost now. So when I say enable feature property, get property. So I do need that guy. But, oh, so that's just my property. Sorry. I could do that. I could do property dot set value on the instance that is the effective configuration with whichever one I decide. So we also need to skip out of this if the thing equals ID. We would say this. We would do for each of those, if the property name equals ID, then we would continue like this. Okay. We don't care about the ID property on the app configuration. So the app configuration has an ID property. We don't care about that. So continue the for each loop. So we're looping through these. We grab all of the property values. Now we don't need to do this. If the global property value equals the user property value, then there is nothing to do. I think. So where are we setting our effective configuration? Effective configuration is set here. So we actually need to new up an instance. So our effective app configuration is equal to a new app configuration. We'll need a starter on that. So we've got our effective app configuration, new app configuration. So if the global property value equals the user property value, nothing to do other than set it. So that's not strictly true here, is it? We would need to do this. Effective configuration is equal to that. but that's not always going to be a bool. Could be a string. And that's where the complexity comes in, because we need to read it as a string or a here. So we would either need to do this or this. Let me config property. Config property was the config properties get property from there. So the config property is just the property, but that's when we need to start looking at the whether it's got an attribute or not. So that's what this was all about. Okay, so we will need this. Feature attribute, get custom attributes, type of feature. That means it's a feature attribute. Then if the feature attribute's length is greater than this, it means it's a feature. If that, else. So in here, we would grab this. Otherwise, we would grab this. We could say, this is going to get horrible, but let's do global property value object user property value. There or there. I haven't really thought this through yet, so this could be a terrible idea, but I'm going to wing it so far. How much time have I got left? 5 minutes. Sugar. Okay. This is just property. This is just property. So then we say if the global property value, which is just an object, which is either a string or a bool, then we set the value of the effective configuration to be the global property value. If they're not the same, we can remove this now. I don't think we need to read that one anymore because it's a new one. So if they're, and then if they are the same, then we continue because we don't need to do that anymore. If they're not the same, this is where we need to look at whether the user property value is null. If continue to step through this. If user property value is equal to null, can I do that? It's letting me. I don't know what that's going to do for the nullable bool though. Oh, but this is not a bool anymore, is it? This is a. That is. I don't actually know what that's going to do. If the user property value equals null, then we're going to set the property value to be equal to the global one, because that means the global one has 1. They haven't explicitly set that value. We're going to take the global one. And we are going to continue. We know that they're not the same anymore because we've already done this check. So if it gets down here, then we are going to set this to be the user property value, because they're not the same. The recommendations nowadays is to use is null. Sure. Okay. I'm happy with that. So if they're not the same, if they are the same, we set it and we move on. If the user property value is null, then we set it to the global. But if it's not null, because it is, I've already checked to see if it is null. So if it's not null, which we're down here, then we're just going to take the user property value. So what do we think? I'm going to set a breakpoint here, and I'm going to run something. Let's just see what this does. I'm sort of expecting this to break, but let's have a little look. Okay, so F10. Reflection for the win. So we should have a bunch of properties, and that bunch of properties is blah, 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 ID. Okay, cool. So for each property, if the property name, which we can pin here, and let's move you a little bit. So property name is ID, so we should continue. Beautiful. Property ID is the outdated packages cache. Feature attributes should be 0. So it's not a feature, meaning that we get the value as a string. That should be 60, and this, why has that got 60 in it? Because we were defaulting that. We're defaulting that, and we also said that if the user settings hasn't got anything in it, we set the user settings to be the global. So they've both got 60, and that's because of this thing up here. So in this one, the global property value equals the property value. Global property value. Why are they not the same? I'm confused. Global property value is an object of type string which is a value of 60. The user property value is, and the global property value equals the user property value is false. Is that because the equals operator on an object isn't checking the value? Object dot equals, oh I see, global property value dot equals user property value. Okay. I'm not convinced I like the use of the object yet, but so if we say dot equals, okay, let's try this again. I'm 1 minute overdue. I'm going to need to stop this soon. Smidgen close. Smidgen close. Okay, so the ID property, we're going to step over again. We're going to come through for the outdated package property. We know it's a config. We know that this is true, so we're going to set the effective configuration. So the current effective configuration value is, they're all null. So we're going to set that to be equal to 60. So far, so good. Yep, you're right. So this one, show console output. Feature attributes, the length this time is 1. So the global value is false. Oh. It's not coming through as a nullable bool. It should be the use console output of my global configuration. Global configuration up here's it's hold on. Hold on. I'm going to blank these out. And I'm going to blank these out. I'll run that again. I think it's because it already had an instance of that class. So let's step through this again. So this time the global configurations, there we go. We've got some nulls in there now. But this brings up a question of how we handle the upgrade path, because we've effectively broken some stuff. So let's do this again. So global property values are 60, and in my effective configuration, I've now set it to be 60. The rest are all null. So far, so good again. Show console output. Feature attributes are there. So my global property value is null. Okay. So then this is going to break because null reference exception. Okay. So what you were saying there was we will get a null reference. So can I just do this? Is that bad? Or should I explicitly check for null? Or should I bring these up? Let's bring up another check. But then you need to use equals. Well, what I was thinking was if that is null and oh, I see what you're saying. Sorry, global property value equals null. If they're both null, then we don't do anything. We just continue. I think. If they're both null, then we know it's already null in our effective configuration. So we're good, he says. So here we're good. We're going to set this to 60. So far, so good. Then we come in here, we've got show console output. We know it's a feature, so we're going to get that these are both null. If these are both null, then we continue. Then we get to the default tile, so that should be the same. So let's set a breakpoint in here, and let's set a breakpoint here. We should get to continue there. Same for that one. Same for that one. So what ones are these ones? Event. So the one that I'm interested in is the use keyboard bindings. So it's not that one. Not that one. Not that one. Not that one. That one we're setting to true. So in my global one, it should be true. So we're not. So the user property value is true, which is the default. This is not actually going to test the effective configuration, because at the minute our global configuration is exactly the same as the user configuration. So this should come into here and set it, which is good. And then the next one will likely be the use keyboard bindings, which is the same. and then we are at hide package value, and then we got an exception. Why did we get an exception? Which part is null? Oh, I see. That needs to not be a bool anymore. No, you're right. So this here could be that. And then features dot add. Oh, I can't do that though. Not convinced by that part. Not convinced by that part at all. Let's remove this one, move this one, and we get to there. So that is through keyboard. So that part's worked. So can we get the effective configuration if we go to our properties and we say enable -- name, let's use this one. If we set that globally, what happens if we set it globally? I'm not sure why we've got a breakpoint there. Oh no, I did want to keep that one. Let's do this. Because that's a null reference exception. Get property value there. Find all references. I prefer that. So we set that if feature value dot has value and we're not feature value dot value, it's getting a little bit messy. I think we're close. I'm going to give myself until 20 past, maybe. Get config value, get property value. There's only 4 references. So that was a bool. I've already converted all of those. So let's try this again. I was trying to set it. I don't think I've set it yet. So let's try setting it again. So we get the values and then we enable it. We've enabled it. So now if we change this back to a list. What is our effective configuration now? So we set the show console output. So our effective configuration should be true for that one. So that's that one. And then the outdated one. You know what? Let's go back to here and let this run through. This one we're interested in. So we get the value. The global property value is null. Well, that's clearly not worked. Show console output. That clearly didn't work. That clearly didn't work. Show console output is false. Let's go back to here and we're going to say enable -- name show console output. And I think I've got a feature set. I think I've got it. We do. No. We do. Yes. So in here, we are, command name is feature. The feature command is global, is false. Command is enable. So we should be enabling it. So when we come into here, the chosen configuration is essentially the user one at that point. User app configuration. Oh, I need to reread it. Or do I? Let's come back to that. No, because we're only setting it at this point. So feature property, the feature property is nullable. Feature value currently is null. So if it has a value, oh, we don't actually, no, that's the part that's wrong. Because it's going into here. Yes. We don't actually care if it has a value. You just want to set it. But we only want to set it if it's, hold on. Hold on. If it doesn't have a value, hold on, is that right? If the feature value equals null, because it was null just now, wasn't it? Or the feature value see, hold on. Or I'm basically trying to guard it against that. Dot has value, and let's do this. Am I overthinking that? Try this again. It's 3 minutes. Arr. So the feature value is null. So if the feature value equals null, then we set it. Beautiful. Back into here. That was on the user one. Now if I say list, now if I say list and I set this to be here, then the one I'm interested in is the show console output. So the show console outputs feature, we get the global should be null because we set it at the user level. The user level is true. So we come down to here, user value, they're both not null. The global property value, that's still going to throw a null reference exception because how do I know which way around to do it? So that's not going to work. That's going to throw a wobbler. That's going to go boom. What we're trying to say there is we know that they're both not null. So I think the only way we could do this would be to say if global property value is not equal to null and the global property value equals the user property value, then we set it equal to the global. Hold on. I think we're missing one here that says if the user property value equals null, then if the user property value is null, then we set it to the global one. If, and at this point we know that the user property value, so we can just reverse this, I think. So if the user property value dot equals the global property value, which could be null because we haven't checked it, then that's the wrong way around. That's not what we're trying to do. Oh, I'm getting so confused. So in this scenario, we've set it at the user level, but we haven't set it at the global level. So if the user property value equals the global property value, then we set it to the user property value. And we continue. If the user property value is null, so this is an invalid test at this point because we've done that up here. Were they just in the wrong order then? If the user property value is null, set it to be the global, regardless, because whatever the global one is, which could be null, it gets set to there. If the user property value equals Or do I not need this anymore? So what we've said is, if they're both null, we just continue. If the user property value is null, we set it to the global, which could also be null. And then I know, I really need to go inside. If the user property value, if they're both null, we continue. It's fine. If the user property value is null, then let's just take the global one, because regardless, we know that the user hasn't chosen to override it. So we'll take the global one, which could be null. If... Talk to you later, Maurice. Do we need this equals? Talk to you later, Kim. Everybody's going. I might. I'm going to go through it one more time in my head. If they're both null, we continue. If the user property value is null, then we know it's not been set, so we'll just set it equal to the global. If the global one's null, at this point, we know that the user value one was null, so it's not been overridden, so we would just set it equal to the global. So I think what we want there then is that, I think. If we get all the way down here, then the user property value is null, just take the global one. And if no, we do still need an equals operator. So if it's not equal to null, yeah, so we have got another check in here. If the user property value is not equal to null, and the global property value equals null, I'm sure there's a quicker way of writing this, then we're going to use this one. Then we use it because we're overriding it. And then if we get down to here, and that one. So at this point, we know that and if we get all the way down here, if we know that that one and that one is not equal to null, and we know that the global property value dot equals the user property value, cut, paste, paste, maybe. If the global property value is not equal to the user property value, then we use the user property value. Do I need to do the other one? Because at that point we're saying user property value overrides the global one because they're not equal. And if we get all the way down here, then we'll just use the global one, I think. So what are we doing in here? We are listing the feature. See what happens. So we had set the show console output in the user scope. Not that one, this one. So we know that the global one is null, the user one has a value of true. So the user one is not equal to null, the user property value is not equal to null, and the global property value is null. So that means that we're going to set the effective to be the user one, and we move on. F9, list them out. So we know, there we go. Happy days. Happy days. Now, if we do this for global, then we still need to set the effective configuration, but we're explicitly requesting the global. So what we should get back is it being off. Okay, happy days. So then we need to set something at the global scope, which is this one. And we're going to come into here and we're going to say enable name that one globally. So we're going to set it. We're going to set it enabled. Okay, so we're going to come back to here and we're going to list the user settings. So the effective one this time, both of them should be on. So let's do, where are we at? Let's go here and we say outdated, don't care about. Show console output we did care about, and it was this one. So if we step through this one, the global one is set to true, the user one is set to null. So in this scenario, the user property is null, meaning it hasn't set a property, so we're going to set it to true. I think they're both on. Look at that. Good, happy days. And then the final one is if we list out the global again, we have to set the effective configuration, but we need to see what the global is. At this point, the second feature should be enabled, the first one shouldn't. Yes! Okay, I think I'm going to go and sleep on it, but I'm going to check all this in before I lose all of this. So what's the branch that I'm on? The branch that I'm on is, what's the 602? It's 602. Git status, git add everything, git commit -m gh602 initial attempt at getting things working. I will fix that commit message later. Git push origin. It won't work because I don't have a branch. And then if I go up to Chocolatey GUI, then I should do a compare and pull request into develop. Very early days, but things seem to be working. And let's have a quick look to see what the changes were. So, you know what? It's fine. I'm just gonna create a pull request. We're gonna say add my ringworm at Stevie because he was here, at Manfred, at Kevin R. I saw Jan kicking about, so he can have a this is the output from the stream tonight. Could you all have a look when you have a minute? Things. Oh, Adelio, where's he? Is he on this repo? Oh, yes. Things seem to be working, but haven't really tested it out fully yet. Okay, so I'll test it out more tomorrow, but I think we have something that's almost there. So with that, I'm going to say good night. Thank you all for coming. I'm going to push the button to hopefully close out my stream and test it all out. So we shall see you again next Monday. Thank you very much.